And good afternoon to everyone. Now we have another wonderful session about reforming the standards of animal welfare for marine life. For this, we have a wonderful speaker with us today, Dr. Manilal Valliyate. Dr. Manilal is the CEO of PETA India. He is a former cooperative member of the Animal Welfare Board of India and also is a former member of the Kerala State Animal Welfare Board. Under his guidance, his knowledge, and his report that have helped the organization to win numerous court cases that have prevented the suffering of animals in nationwide. Out of many victories, one of the most important is that already we knew that 2014 Supreme Court judgment about the banned Jallikattu and bullock cart races. To protect his health and reduce animal health suffering, he lives in a vegan lifestyle. Before starting this session, I would request all the attendees, please feel free to write your questions to in a chat box which is below. I requested Dr. Manilal, please share your knowledge with us, which is very helpful for animal welfare point of view. Thank you. Over to Dr. Manilal.
Hello everyone. Below this sparkling blue surface live countless fish. There are some 32,000 species of fish. Some can fly, while others can climb trees. And some are even able to change from male to female and back again. They are fascinating, intelligent and social animals. For instance, scientists tell us that fish show their cleverness in many ways. This includes having long memories, learning fast, and even manipulating others by tricking or reconciling with them. Some fish use tools, something we once thought only humans and chimpanzees can do. Fish talk. That is, they communicate through gestures, movements, electric pulses, bioluminescence, and the release of chemicals or sounds. Fish also care for each other and have friends. A video of a porcupine fish trapped in a net and being delicately freed by a snorkeler attracted global attention. That's because the porcupine fish's concerned fish friend hovered by despite the potentially dangerous human's presence and waited patiently for the porcupine fish to be cut free of the net. Scientists have also found that fish like to play. Before we talk more about fish, let me tell you my association with them. Today, I am vegan, but I was brought up on the tiny islands of Lakshadweep in the Arabian Sea, where our staples were fish and rice. When I was a child, a neighbor lost his hand when a dynamite stick he was using for fishing exploded prematurely. I also remember that villagers would use poisonous plants to kill and catch fish. Imagine being killed by explosive poison or spears. That's what it was like for fish back then. But today's so-called modern fishing methods are also cruel and destructive. India is now the second largest fishing producing country in the world. This is significant because humans currently capture so many fish, up to trillions a year, that it has been estimated that these species could disappear from the oceans by 2048. In fact, way back in 2003, a study came out saying 90% of all large fishes had already disappeared from the world's oceans in the previous half century. This is all down to those modern methods of fishing I mentioned, and the fish die in terrible ways. We all know human actions means many fish suffocate to death, but I think we are in much better position now to imagine what that means. The pandemic we are going through has been extremely stressful for many of us. Some of us have even lost our dear ones to respiratory complications and oxygen deprivation. Adding to the panic was the short supply of oxygen in hospitals during the second COVID-19 wave. Fish, like us, require oxygen. Yet, Every day, about 6.3 billion fish are hauled out of oceans and other waterways. Yes, billions every single day, gasping for air, for meat we do not need to eat. To add to this, up to 457 million farm fish are pulled out of the water and killed every day. But just because fish do not scream does not mean they are not in pain.
You look at me when I'm talking to you! Look at me! Is this what you want? You use this woman? Look at what you made me do! Look at me! Shut your mouth! What has she got? No! No! Cry! Cry!
These days, around the world, huge vessels, weighted trawl nets, the size of several football fields, go out into the sea to catch fish, dragging them across the seafloor, capturing and destroying coral reefs and everyone and everything else in their path. And that's just one destructive fishing method out of many. Another fishing technique uses nets up to nearly 130 kilometers long with up to thousands of baited hooks hanging from them to capture tuna, swordfish and other targeted fish. The hooks become embedded in the animal's mouth or elsewhere on their bodies, injuring them further as they struggle to escape. Fish and other animals who are caught in these long lines can be trapped for days until they are hauled up on the boats. When they are finally pulled up, fishers often sink pickaxes into the animals' bodies everywhere they can get a grip to yank them in. This could be in their fins, sides, or even eyes. There are also gill nets. A gill net is a sheet of netting which fish cannot see. Many fish get their heads stuck in the net and become even more constricted by it as they try to escape. The struggling can make it difficult for the fish to breathe as the net tightens around their bodies. The fish suffer lacerations from the net and become easy prey for predators. Gill nets can remain suspended in the water for days, causing prolonged suffering. Meanwhile, fish caught by the purse seining method find themselves enclosed in netting that can be a kilometer long. The netting and all the animals in it are then pulled up like drawstring handbag. We can easily imagine what happens inside the net. The fish begin to panic as the net closes in and the area gets smaller and more crowded. As the fish try to escape moving helter-skelter, they collide with one another and the netting causing injury. When they are brought on board as a mass, many fish are crushed to death. Because fishing methods like these are not great at discriminating between target and non-target marine life, a huge number of seals, seabirds, whales, snakes, turtles, dolphins and other animals are caught as bycatch. Of course, even the target species want to leave. In a paper that appeared in Marine Policy some years ago, researchers conservatively estimated that more than 40% of global marine hauls are bycatch. That means for every fish eaten, another animal has likely died. Estimated global bycatch figures include at least 300,000 small whales, dolphins and porpoises, more than 250,000 turtles, 345,000 seals and sea lions, 720,000 seabirds and tens of millions of sharks and other sea animals. To make matters worse, discarded fishing gear is the biggest plastic polluter in the ocean. This gear is often referred to as ghost nets, as they float along lost or abandoned at sea. They entangle, mutilate, and kill millions of sea animals who are unfortunate enough to find themselves in their path. By one estimate, up to 1,000,000 tons of ghost fishing equipment is abandoned in the ocean each year. Astonishingly, even though up to trillions of animals are caught for food worldwide, more fish are raised on fish farms than are wild caught. Fish farming is simply factory farming in water. Just like chickens and other farmed land animals, aquatic species are confined to cramped, filthy enclosures. Parasites like sea lice eat away at the animals' bodies, and diseases and injuries on fish farms are common. In these conditions, drugs, in particular antibiotics, are the primary reason factory farms, including fish farms, can exist. In fact, antibiotics are used far more in farmed animals than in humans. This is leading to antibiotic resistance, in which life-saving drugs humans need become less effective. The first comprehensive analysis of global impact of drug resistance estimates that the resistance itself caused 1.27 million deaths in 2019 when drugs needed failed to work. Then there are stronger infections that can develop which cause even more deaths. Many people think fish farming does not contribute to emptying the oceans of fish, but they are mistaken. Almost a fifth of world's total catch of wild fish is processed into fish meal and fish oil, of which 69% of fish meal and 75% of fish oil production are used to feed farm fish. These fish and fish products are even fed to non-carnivorous farm fish to encourage abnormally fast growth. They are also often fed to farm chickens and pigs. Of course, all of this is awful news for fish, but it is also terrible news for us. We are all aware of the urgency of reducing carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. If humans do not reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the planet will continue to grow warmer with devastating effects. Whales are tremendous carbon stores. They greatly outdo trees, so much so that the International Monetary Fund says one whale is worth thousands of trees. With a single whale's contribution to protecting our planet valued at about $2 million US. On average, a whale absorbs 30 tons of carbon dioxide. A tree, in comparison, absorbs up to just over 21 kilograms of carbon dioxide a year. Whales can be thought of as Greta Thunbergs with flippers. They are nature's climate activists, existing in part to protect the earth. When land animals die, most of us release carbon into the atmosphere. However, things are different in the ocean. When the whales die, carbon accumulated in their bodies over their lifetimes, bowhead whales live to be over 200, moves down to the seafloor where it can stay for hundreds of years. Other sea animals are carbon stores too, and the same rule that applies to whales applies to big fish. When left alone, their bodies sink to the ocean depths when they die along with the carbon they accumulated. However, fisheries significantly change this. A recent study published in Science Advances reveals fisheries have released 730 million tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere in 70 years. A writer for the environmental website Mongabe compared this to the amount 188 coal-fired power plants would release in a year, explaining these emissions come from the release of carbon in fish bodies into the air when they are eaten or disposed of on land instead of in the sea, and from vessels' fuel consumption, and they contribute significantly to global warming and climate change. The hard truth is evidently this: eat tuna, harm the earth. The removal of big fish like tunas, mackerels, sharks, and billfishes by the fishing industry were factored into the researchers' calculations. The authors of the study point to the decimation of fish populations by industrial fishing fleets, thereby removing astronomical amounts of blue carbon from the ocean, that is, carbon stored by the world's ocean and coastal ecosystems. Meanwhile, huge amounts of fossil fuels are burned as the fleets travel huge distances to capture fish. Then there is the very air we breathe. Everyone knows trees produce oxygen, but so do whales, at least indirectly. And this is vital to our own lives, because scientists tell us at least 50% and up to 80% of oxygen on the planet comes from the ocean, mostly thanks to the plankton, microscopic plants, algae and bacteria that photosynthesize and drift along tides and currents. The microscopic Prochlorococcus species produces up to 20% of the world's oxygen, more than all tropical rainforests combined. Where there are whales, there are phytoplankton, the tiny marine algae, which takes nutrients from the animal's excrement. All the animals in the ocean have various important roles to play, including filter feeders like clams, mussels, and oysters who help maintain a healthy water quality. Another example is how the mere movement of animals in the ocean contributes to necessary calculation and the spreading and mixing of nutrients, the force of which is comparable or to even more than that provided by winds and waves and tidal movements. The brief I got in creating this session was to shed light on fish welfare and the current laws and regulations pertaining to fish welfare in India, in addition to the kinds of policies that should be put into place to improve fish welfare in our country. And the truth is, right now, there really aren't that many laws to protect fish. And those in place, which often have to do with quotas rather than welfare, are not well enforced. For example, the Tamil Nadu state government, as per the Tamil Nadu Fishing Regulation Act 1983, had banned purseine nets because of their harm to marine life. But even now, fishers there continue to use manually hauled purseine nets. And as far as fish farming, heck, there are hardly laws regarding the factory farming of chicken, let alone fish. So what need to be done? There is some policy level talk going on against trawling and other destructive fishing methods. Some months ago, Kerala introduced a 52-day trawling ban to address fish depletions. But small steps like this are not enough, and regulations, even when passed, still do not eliminate cruelty. Of course, it is our responsibility to reduce cruelty, and we must. But considering the severe consequences to marine life and our own, It is imperative now that we use our arsenal to help more people see that fish are friends, not food, as a famous phrase from the movie Finding Nemo goes. Humans would be better off not eating fish for personal health too. For instance, a study found that today approximately 84% of fish contain mercury levels so high that the meat is considered unsafe to eat. Most mercury in oceans is the result of human activity like the burning of fossil fuels. Exposure to mercury has been linked to cancer, heart issues, and other serious health concerns and is considered extremely dangerous for pregnant women since it can affect the baby's brain development. Washington DC based Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine warns that fish contains cholesterol and saturated fat just as other animal derived foods too. The doctors group recommends flax seeds, walnuts, chia seeds, hemp seeds, soybeans or wheat germ instead of fish for alpha-linolenic acid, which is an essential omega-3 fatty acid, which is good for heart and brain health. Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you, Dr. Manilal, for such a nice presentation. I think you have a very extremely experience in animal welfare issues. Thank you. It is an honor to me to interact with you. We have received a few of the questions from audience. So first question is that if you allow me, I will read out one by one.
Sure.
The first question is, why should we care about fish welfare?
Very good question. I think we all care about. I heard one of the speaker talking about this. So it's more about we all connecting with certain things in life, right? Some of us we worry for our family, we worry for our friends, our companion animals. Somehow the other way we connect with them. We connect our emotions, our feelings, and the way we think, the way they think. I think there is some connection happening at some places. So for all of us, we connect with fish welfare could be in different ways. So probably somebody like maybe for a scientist, there are a lot of scientists, who had worked in a marine park earlier and later turned out to, became activists, people who were with the dolphins and involved in the entertainment industry and like Rico Barry, he turned out to be a person, who were like really speaking out for the protection of dolphins. So I think fish welfare comes into picture when we see them, in our daily lives. For example, somebody might be going to maybe somebody have to cross a fish market every day. Something one might see is those live fishes, put into a small, bucket with dirty water and they're struggling to survive and gas air. That might influence somebody, the very sight of cruelty. Or for someone, maybe going to a restaurant or a hotel, seeing an aquarium right in front of the entry and, a dirty water filled with filth and, the fish is also struggling to, live. And one might feel that I cannot live in a small room, even the pandemic we showed us, we cannot just close the door and live there and it's terrible. So I think we all connect with them in different ways. I think that also what matters in welfare. I think it's as simple as I could say that things shouldn't happen with us, which we feel very, very strongly should not happen to any other living beings.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Another question is, welfare standards for fish, however, between abysmal and non-existent. Would public opinion support campaigns for fish?
So as far as our law goes, the Indian laws, probably some of you might be aware that in 2017, the central government notified the prevention of cruelty to animals, aquarium and fish tank animal shop rules in 2017, but soon it was withdrawn because of some reason. So I'm not saying that in terms of having a law that law was perfect in protecting animals, but rather that was a regulatory law, more to deal with aquarium and fish tanks and how people should be keeping. But that was withdrawn. But more or less, if you look at the history of issues which came up time to time with fish welfare, one was obviously the plan of few state governments, like Maharashtra had a plan and Kerala had a plan to set up dolphinariums, the entertainment parks. And that was a time PETA, FIAPO, and other animal protection organizations raised voice. And eventually in 2013, the central government came with a policy stating that especially cetaceans and especially marine animals, you cannot put them. You cannot at the first place you cannot hunt them, you cannot capture them, and you cannot put them in concrete tanks. So that way, that policy really helped a lot. And one pertinent issue that came up, I think in past few years was the shark fin trade. So we know that there were a lot of fishes, sharks being killed in the sea, their fins being cut, and they bled to death. So I think in 2015, the central government again came up with a notification. The DGFT, Director General of Foreign Trade, came with that notification where they banned shark fin trade. But if you look at our laws, something which even the lightest level of protection that is being given to marine fishes is the Wildlife Protection Act. For example, there are 4 species of sharks which are in the Schedule 1. Now, the question is, how will you recognize, which shark is being protected and not being protected? And similarly, if you see, the shark fins being traded in the market, illegally, do you really know that whether those fins are being cut from a protected species or a non-protected species? So I think the government used a very good logic here. When you don't know which species they are, I think it's better in the better interest of the sharks to ban the entire shark fin trade itself. So there are some progressive laws or time to time issues that came up and action being taken. But I think we have a long way to go in terms of protecting these animals.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Another question is that we encounter questions of fish welfare from both a biological and an ethical perspective. Can you share a little more on the biological perspective for fish welfare?
The biological perspective, in the sense, they as an individual with similar thoughts and beliefs in anatomy and others like other animals.
Yes.
So we all know that fish feel pain. I think that was one question which there were a lot of discussion happening. Like other animals, but whether the fish feel pain or not. Obviously,
yeah.
I think something which I mentioned is the pandemic. So oxygen, nobody have talked about oxygen, last couple of months like us, it was all about oxygen in the news and everywhere. We struggled a lot to breathe and we lost dear ones. But look at the fishes. I think thinking of dying without oxygen is exactly what happens to millions and trillions of fishes every day. They gasp for air and they die. But if you look at, how we can relate them, of course. There is a book by Victoria, late biologist Victoria, Do Fish Feel Pain? She says there is as much evidence that fish feel pain and suffer as there is for birds, mammals. Fish don't audibly scream when they are impaled on hooks or grimace when the hooks are ripped from the mouths, and the behavior offers evidence of their suffering. So if you are willing to look, then only we will be able to see the suffering. And similarly, there are lot of interesting stories about fish. Not stories, but the realities. The scientists are learning about them. For example, Nemo, the famous character from the movie, Finding Nemo. So as per the science, it is the females. They're born as male, but later they all becomes females. Nemos becomes females. Sorry, I'm saying the other way. So the males becomes females at a later stage. So similarly, what we have seen is like Nemo's father, Marlin, was searching for Nemo because he was caught by the aquarium industry and put in a fish tank. So Marlin would have turned into Marlene, according to one of the TED talker, that because he becomes a a female. So similarly, there are a lot of interesting, facts about, the sex in the sea, how they have I mean, these are things which humans can relate to animals, even, for example, lobsters, they have, there is a particular pattern, and there are certain behaviors of lobsters which we can very closely link to with the reproductive behavior. So I think biologically, there are a lot of animals who are very intelligent, and it's honestly, we really cannot compare who is more intelligent. And I think it's all, the God have created animals to survive in certain situations. So, but there are a lot of ways we can compare ourselves to animals.
Yeah, thank you for the nice explanation. And another question is that there is a threat of extinction of global shark and race population grows every year.
Correct.
International commitment to reduce this threat have not been met, and we are losing more fishes with each past year. How can we gather support from international organizations to make sure we give this issues the importance it needs?
I think to begin with, I think we all can contribute. Humans. I think one of the major. So if you look at, even if you look at the Indian scenario, there are majorly three areas where fishes are being captured and being, abused. And one is the aquarium industry. So even if you take the saltwater fishes that are being wild caught and put into the aquarium, I think 90% of them are like, the fact is, in captivity, they cannot be bred in captivity. That means every time an aquarium have to be filled with a wild, a saltwater fish, somebody have to go to the sea and capture them. And the fish like Bangai cardinal fish, they have already declared them as endangered because of the aquarium trade. So, and the other aspect of using fish is as food. So obviously we have a choice, what we want to eat. So more or less is a consumption, of the fish. I think more protection of animals. Similarly, the entertainment business. I think we don't want to learn from. We have to learn from others that these kind of SeaWorld like entertainment establishments, how they torture whales and other animals, putting them in a concrete. So I think we cannot continue with this kind of eating the fish and try to protect them, and we cannot continue with having aquariums everywhere. It's more like a recreational thing everywhere where you go in offices or restaurants or anywhere. I think that has to go. So that is that those are the ways. But internationally, I think there are a lot of organizations working on it. And obviously, the thing is whatever regulations one might come up with, the temporary prohibition on trolling, but the fact is, already a lot of species have vanished. And, all this discussion about sustainable fishing, I think, I don't think there is such a thing exists, sustainability, because if you look at the modern fishing, most of the techniques are being used from the like warfare thing, the technologies developed during the Second World War. Those are the kind of technology being used in fishing, the sonars and radars and helicopters and spotting aeroplanes. So that's the kind of technology being used. And with that kind of a technology, it's like, even with the reproducing capacity of the animals, most of the fishes do take time to reproduce. So I think your technology far exceeds the way these animals reproduce in the ocean and have more babies and more number of fishes. So they are going to disappear. Like what is being predicted in 2048, they are going to disappear if you're going ahead with this kind of catching and killing and eating them.
Yeah, there is another question is that in your presentation, as you said that marine fish is not safe for human health due to heavy metals like mercury. Yeah. Do you have scientific data on that? Or,
absolutely.
And if yes, no, there is another part. If yes, no, please explain some more points on that.
So there are a lot of scientific facts. I think the scientific facts are like mostly based on the fish being, obviously, we have a lot of biochemical assay methods using which we can find out the the ingredients of everything that we eat. The chemicals being contained in what we eat, everything, the fertilizers, they're vegetables. So everything what is there, we can be calculated or estimated. So fish meat is something, on which there have been growing concerns about having, heavy metals, especially mercury. I think we know that that is one, chemical which is completely harmful for human health. And most of the contribution of mercury into the sea is obviously from these boats, the trawlers, the kind of fuel being, the mechanized transport being, on the ocean. That's a major contributor. But it is well known now that these fishes, even for the transportation purpose, because when they catch the fish from the sea, they have to be transported. By the time it reaches the consumer, there are a lot of chemicals like ammonia being used. Recently there were like a lot of hue and cry with respect to the preservatives, the chemicals being used for transporting these fishes, so that they stay, it doesn't get rotten. So I think there are facts, there are articles which all talks about the poisonous chemicals that is being part of the fish now, and it is also being established medically that how these heavy metals can actually cause the brain growth, if the mothers eat fish, and if that contains a high mercury level, how we can affect the brain growth of the children, and also can other diseases and other problems one can develop over a period of time.
Thank you, doctor. Another question related to ornamental fishes. Aquariums are trending in India so much so that they are sold in streets as well. How to spread awareness on this area and help the people understand the cruelty behind it, and help people understand other reason? Is there any too?
I think speciesism, if you look at speciesism, I think we need to understand that, when we look at animals, for some of us, dogs are very important in life. We care about them. For some, we care for cats. For some, one would say that, okay, it's wrong to, keep a bird in cage. People are keeping a lot of exotic birds, and some of them even keep, parakeets, which is prohibited under the law. But I think it's all about the sensitivity. One cannot see a bird being caged or kept in a house, or a dog being put on kept on a balcony all the day. So obviously one cannot put a fish in a small tank, and that too with filthy water. Obviously, it's just like don't adopt a dog if you can't take care of the animal, because it's a responsibility. You have to live with the animal and understand his needs accordingly. So fishes have a lot of their own needs as a species, and keeping one or two fishes, and you don't even know whether they're like predators or preys, and you can't even provide those enrichment one would. In the vast oceans, they are like moving, they are swimming, the kind of distance they travel. I think none of these natural needs, which is important for the life, which is important to them, can't be provided by aquariums. So if one go to a restaurant, one go to a hotel, or one go to an office, if they see an aquarium, I must say that they should speak out. They should speak out, the person, in charge of that facility, that probably they should look for something, nice, plants or flowers or something, instead of, keeping live animals in such a small enclosures. I think, and how it is impacting our own environment and our own, marine species. And
actually, doctor, another question is from audience. Audience is that the thing is, government of not only India, throughout worldwide, every government, they are supporting to production of aquatic animals.
Mm-hmm.
So during either it culture or either it capture fisheries. So as we think about the capture fisheries, we need to catch the fish by trawl net only. So as you said, the trawl net, it may harmful. Trawl net and hooks also may be harmful to the animals. So do you suggest any alternate method for catching the aquatic animals for reducing the pain or cruelty?
Absolutely, there is no solution. There is no humane way of rearing fish, or there is no humane way of catching fish, or there is no humane way of killing. I think uh, everything is a myth in that way. I mean, obviously, the fundamental question is, if you're deprived of oxygen and if you suffocate and die, is that a pleasant experience? Absolutely not. So if any fishing method you adopt, the basic thing is you're taking an animal out of its natural environment where that animal can breathe and survive and live. So taking the animals, the fishes out of water itself is cruel, and there is no humane way of fishing at all.
Yeah. Another question, Dr. The question is that no FAO reported one last FAO Food and Agriculture Organization. They given the for the for the population 2050 we are getting malnutrition of protein. For that no, for that we need to overcome that problem. No, we need to increase the production of aquatic animals. Is there either fish, shrimp, any other aquatic animals? So, do you suggest FAO any? Do you suggest any FAO rather than animal protein to protein rather than animal protein to plant protein?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at our routine life, if you even want to critically look at what are the daily nutrients what you need, and you don't even want to survive on any kind of a supplement or any tablet or capsules to be taken, I think there are a lot of plant source nutrients where you really don't have to rely on any animal source nutrients or proteins or anything. And even if you look at the factory farms, whether you take chicken or piggery or fish, I mean, eventually these animals have to be fed, and these animals are fed with plant nutrients only. I mean, whatever we cultivate, soybean, everything is being properly processed and fed to these animals. So in the process of you eating food and being given to few animals, and those animals further consume lot of quantity of all these materials, and eventually they give you a small portion of food which you think that is only source of protein, which is absolutely not. And I think the important thing is, as on today, we know that we have choices, and the choice is you have all the nutrients available from the plant sources, and you don't have to kill an animal or abuse an animal for meeting those nutrient requirements. And rather, I would say, for a sustainable future, I think it is important that the government should look forward to promoting more of agriculture, and I think that is one way to secure our food security questions here.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Another question is that how can weaker section of communities such as fishermen from coastal areas of the entire nation, they are being sensitized on fish cruelty, and supporting industries be phased out and completely banned? Are there policies and plans being implemented as we speak? Are we sincerely able to move to progress compassionate community, especially with respect to the marine life?
Yes, I think it's all about we all making a small changes. As consumers, more people have to be reached out. More people need to be sensitized, and obviously, our industry works in a way where there's a demand, there is a supply. So when more people are aware of the issues of fishes and they're being killed, and I think more people move to a more humane food system, I think the consumer demand goes down. Then there is naturally there is a struggle to catch more fish or rear more fish. And obviously, as long as the livelihood is concerned, I think alternatives can be put in place, where livelihood of the peoples can be protected, and at the same time, I think the important part is we all are part of a larger world, all our actions are leading to, irreversible changes on the earth, the climate change, the environmental damage, everything. So I think if we have to make this world a better place for living, and we want to protect the future of our, coming generation, I think we have to act now. So in sensitizing people and providing people with alternatives, not only in terms of what they can choose, but also with respect to what they can earn for the livelihood using a humane a practice or a method. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question is that fish welfare interventions are necessary step towards to fish welfare. How do we educate the rural masses of the same?
About the fish welfare.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's reaching out to people. I think this is one important question that with respect to welfare, how far we are able to reach to people. Though the 2014 judgment of the Supreme Court of India do mention that the 5 freedoms of animals have to be protected, and I mean the animals must have those 5 freedoms, and those messages have to be taken to villages and the rural communities and people who engaged in anything which is related to animals. So I think it's more about we taking our messages, we having more change agents everywhere. I think the networking we need to do, the need for working with the different institutions, individuals, and reaching out to everyone with this message of compassion and the message of what our law says, and the message about why we need to act now if we have to protect our animals and this world.
Okay. Another question is that, Doctor, is there any law that regulate aquaculture? Does the aquaculture owner need to take any permission from municipality, food authority, like poultry farm? No, they're doing? Is there any law?
Currently, there are no law as such, which I mean, where it says that there are no lay down procedures with respect to where one should register the business, or how one should run the business, how the animals should be kept. But I think the basic thing is we have law with respect to protection of animals, like the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960. But as I said, we might find cases being registered, complaint being registered for treating a dog or a cat or an elephant. But one may not find, but if you look at the law, I think that law, I think have to reach out to every animal. Similarly, the Wildlife Protection Act, I think one thing what we find when the Forest Department acting on something related to marine life is one whale, a dead whale found on the seashore. But I think our sensitivity to the fishes have to be much more. I mean, at least something very similar to what we have, the sensitivity we have for other animals. But currently, yes, there are no law as such which regulates aquaculture, and that is a very reason those aquaculture pollutes our water systems, and everything lead to environmental damage, and in the process there are a lot of fishes dying in this aquaculture, in these farms with diseases spreading, and I think there are a lot of cruelty happening in this aquaculture at the first place.
Okay. Another question is that now if you see the street, so many street, so many domestic peoples, they are selling the fishes in the street itself. There is no warehouse like that. So is there any regulation for selling like that?
No, there are no regulations. Even as I said, there was only one regulation which came, that the central government notification on prevention of cruelty to animals, aquarium and fish tank animal shop rules.
Okay.
2017, that was withdrawn. So otherwise, there are no regulations on the people selling fish tanks and fish and these animals on the street. Yeah, absolutely no regulation.
Yeah, Doctor. Another thing is now whatever we have the policies and regulations in fisheries,
Uh-huh.
Are they implemented? Are they implemented? If yes, no, how much percentage it is implemented? Can we work on that like that?
So that is exactly the problem. Now we know that shark fin trade is prohibited. Killing sharks, certain Schedule 1 sharks are like prohibited. But do we have any policing in the sea? No, absolutely no. I mean, there is nobody checking. Whether the fishes being caught by the fishermen are actually, whether they are protected or not protected, or the practices are actually which is something acceptable in terms of which allow as per the law. And there are regulations, but there are laws like, for example, the Territorial Waters, Continental Shelf, Exclusive Economic Zone, and other Maritime Zones Act 1976. It enables the government to take measures for protection of marine environment. But honestly, to what extent that law has taken care of the sea and the sea animals is doubtful. The another one is the Coast Guard Act 1978, which says that the preservation and protection of marine environment and control of marine pollution is the function of the Indian Coast Guard. So similarly, so the kind of pollution that is going into because of the fishing net, the oil leaks, everything, I think to what extent we are able to control is questionable. So there is as such no policing happening in the sea. Yeah. There is as such no policing happening in these aquaculture as well. So absence of law is one thing, and even if we have certain regulations, they are not being implemented because there is no enforcement happening.
Yeah. Another question is many feed manufacturers, either fish and shrimp, they are using fishmeal, which are coming from marine catch. If you see the Indian scenario, in Mangalore coast, there is many of fishmeal plants, which is coming from trash fishes, very small fishes. So, is there any regulation on that?
There is no regulation. There is no regulation because obviously, even for the bycatch, I mean, I do remember from a childhood, especially when I was in Kerala, where there's an excess catch, or even when there was a bycatch, there were a lot of bycatch. They simply used to be, put, around a coconut tree because it was being converted into a kind of a fertilizer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so there is nobody stopping them, bringing these. I mean, they are not even consumed by humans. So they are being used as a fertilizer. Sometimes they go to these feed plants, where this feed processing plant, where they process feed for aquaculture. But yes, I think everything, just like, for example, the commercial, dog food. I mean, how many of us, most of us will know that this fact that, most of this dog food, the feed actually it is made of offals and other waste products from the meat industry. So I think everything is being used. I mean, as a veterinarian, I was being taught that, even in a slaughterhouse, the blood is converted into blood meal, the bone is converted to the bone meal, nothing is left out. So I think, see, there are more scientific evidence to say that all these processed food are actually harming animals. Even if you take a commercial food, the increasing number of kidney failures especially in dogs and cats are now have a significant relation to the commercial food being given to them. So it's like that, the processed food, even if they come from the killed marine fishes, eventually they are like being fed to the farm fishes, and they also suffer from similar consequences. Yeah. Something, if the mercury is harmful to us, no doubt that the same mercury being fed to the farm fish are also harmful to them. So you're carrying forward a poison from one to another and eventually reaching out to the humans.
Okay. In addition to that, Doctor, and European countries, they're developed European countries. They are developed protein replacement with phytobiotics, plant-based proteins. So are we educate the feed manufacturer to use only for phyto, like soya? Soya is for one of the major source of protein. Like another plant-based protein, can we suggest that can we work?
You mean these soya protein for the feeding the
No, no.
fish industry,
Yeah, fish industry, I'm
aquaculture?
telling. Yeah, actually, for the fish meal, no, almost many populations of anchovies, perus. These are fishes are died in each and every day for
Mhm.
making the fish meal. So for a replacement of animal protein, is there any possibility to get the plant-based protein?
Yeah, so the thing is, the whatever we cultivate, the plant
Mm,
protein we cultivate, I think
mm,
there are a lot of starving populations in our world, everywhere. There are countries who are unable to feed the people. So
yeah,
instead of feeding all these plant proteins to fishes and then they converting that into animal protein, which eventually causes the disease to human beings, why should we waste the plant protein at the first place to be processed and being fed to, fishes? And then I think that process itself, have a lot of wastage of food. I think if the plant protein itself is complete in terms of nutrition, I think why should we waste it on something else, instead of consuming it directly? And
yeah,
and as long as the flavor of fish are concerned, especially when people struggle to move from a non-vegetarian diet to a vegetarian or a vegan diet, I think now that our technology have, to a greater extent developed where we have mock meat, we have replacements to, killing a fish and eating the meat. So I think we have progressed. So with better
yeah,
methods, more scientific awareness, knowledge, technology, and understanding that we have to protect our own future, I think better we use this plant protein for feeding the starving population than converting that into fish meal and chicken meal and other things.
yeah. There is another question which is coming from audience. What are the alternative livelihood opportunities we can recommend fishermen that are not resource heavy and would not displace them?
See, I mean, I haven't really worked on a rehabilitation plan for the fish community, but what I can give you an example, is, in Delhi, there are a lot of tongas, the horse cart. I mean, they have been there for some years, but in 2010, the Delhi government banned them. Now they're still plying illegally, but the community is, literally do not have any source of income because all those tongas have been replaced by trucks and auto rickshaws, and so nobody is hiring them for work and they hardly any earning, and eventually if they don't earn, the animals also are starving, the family is starving. So when one alternative we could provide them was, if we could help them get an e-rickshaw, in e-rickshaws,
Yeah,
electronic rickshaws are everywhere in Delhi now. So they could do the same. I mean, if they are commuting between, the New Delhi railway station and, the bus station, they can do the same job, but instead of using a tonga, they can use a e-rickshaw. So one really doesn't have to entirely shift from, one profession, but at the same time, there are alternatives one can think of. And I think this is something which I tell my son as well. Everybody have the right to progress in life. If my father and as a child I had certain limited opportunities, I think probably I'm able to give a better living condition for my son. So with education, you have a tonga wala doesn't have to be a tonga wala forever. And they also say that my children don't want to continue with this profession. So if I think socially, economically, we all have right to progress in life, and one doesn't have to really stick to a business or a situation which probably over a period of time may not be relevant at all. So I think with respect to livelihood, it is important that we think out of the box and move beyond the comfort zone.
yeah. In addition to that, is seaweed cultivation is an alternative
Absolutely,
livelihood for?
yes. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, seaweed cultivation is obviously for many reasons, not only as a good source of nutrients, but also more green means more oxygen and more good health for the earth.
Okay. And one more question is that, the whatever the laws, no, now If you see I'm from Andhra Pradesh. I know the aquaculture. I'm the fisheries guy. So whatever the laws is there, no, that is not implementing when we go to the field. Is there any is there are we do anything to do follow the rules and regulation? Why I'm asking this question? No,
Mhm.
there is a area in Andhra Pradesh, Kolleri Lake. That is in surrounding that lake. No, it is not. There is a law. There is a law is they do not do cultivating the aquatic organisms. Either it fish and swim. But no, so many customers they are doing.
Mhm.
So why it is so much negligence, or we can say can we improve? Can we improve for them? Any through the government?
I think yes. I think it's the information, the knowledge is the power. Obviously, I think some of us the privilege of accessing the knowledge much quite easily, and some of those who are underprivileged, I think we have to reach out to them and help them with understanding things. So I do believe in working together, especially when you work with the communities, the people in the villages, and I think more we sit with them, more we understand the problems, issues, and how. I mean, more. I think it's more than you providing a solution. I think a lot of environmental related issues can be sorted out by involving the community. The people who live there. The people who are part of it. I think a lot of sustainable solutions can be evolved by sitting with them, and you just need to facilitate them. And I do understand that most of the questions we ask ourselves, we do have answers to it. The only thing is we have to do a proper review and reflection of based on our experience, collective experience, and accordingly take decisions. So in this case also, I think sitting with the community, talking to them, understanding the issues, and also helping them finding the alternatives could be the solution.
Okay, we are running out of the time, so I'll take only two questions. One is that no, as you mentioned in your presentation, gillnet also it is very harmful to the fish.
Correct.
So would you suggest what is the alternative?
See, the gillnets again, I think that is something which the fishes can't even see. So they simply put it, just like a keep it in the sea, and the fish get trapped. So there is no other alternative to any. I mean, gillnet fishing or even long line fishing. Where you throw the hooks.
In that case, no, in that case, no. Not only gillnet, every night, no, the fish can't see, no.
Correct. They can't see, and I mean, different fishing system. I think I mean, it's hardly impossible to say which kind of fishing do not involve cruelty. I think every kind of fishing, all kind of fishing involves cruelty. Either you trap them into a net, or you use the hook to injure them and trap them, or you put them all together and suffocate them and kill them. So it's in the cruelty is inherent part of the business. So I think there is no way you can actually change it or regulate it. So I mean, I honestly, I really can't give an alternative to it.
Okay. The final question is for you only. Will you support the cultivating the aquatic animals in confined area?
Whether I support? Absolutely not. I think absolutely not, because it starts on a small scale and it's widespread now. I think looking at the statistics, this is the number of India is number 2. The kind of environmental damage, of course, fish welfare is one thing. The kind of environmental damage this aquaculture is, creating, the way the water system is being polluted, the way our, food grains and everything being wasted, and the diseases that are spreading, and the impact on the health of the human beings as well. People are, we already have, cholesterol and other issues already. So no doctor can say that, okay, eating chicken is not okay and eating fish is fine. Absolutely not. And if you say that, okay, by eating you will get all those, omega fatty acids and all, absolutely, you don't need to fish. You don't have to take a poison to have a nutrient in it. You can have alternatives like, other seeds and, everything. I think I would underline and say aquaculture is going to damage our environment in a great way. It is going to harm the animals. It is going to harm the health of the human beings as well.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor, for the nice interaction with you on the so many questions. No, in my mind, no, I clarified it. Thanks for the sharing your knowledge. And
I just want to. I just thought of adding. There is a nursery rhyme we all learned. In our childhood. I think everyone might be aware of this. Machli jal ki rani hai, जीवन उसका पानी है. हाथ लगाओ तो डर जाएगी. बाहर निकालोगे तो मर जाएगी. The queen of the water is fish, and water is her life. If you touch her, she will get frightened. If you take out of water, she will die. I think this is the nursery rhyme. The beginners. When the child is born 3-4 years, they are being taught. I think we teach them right at the first place, and we need to see where we go wrong. Taking a fish out of water, she will die. Don't do it. I think let's take the message forward with that nursery rhyme.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor, and there is a very nice explanation and very presentation also very informative. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Fiapo, for giving me this opportunity.